Welcome back to our Rise Prime Time. I'm Somna Sambo, and of course we've been having this discussion on several issues concerning President Tinubu's decision to cut down the cost of governance through his travel entourage, and then of course we've also had the issues, the update on the humanitarian ministry scandals. I have with me in the studio now Arise Analyst Mahmud Jega to provide more insight on the issues raised. Thank you so much, Mahmud, for joining us. Yeah, so Peter Obi, former Labour Party presidential candidate, says President Tinubu's decision on cutting back on his entourage is just mere tokenism, that we don't know how much we're going to be saving as a country, that he didn't provide those details. What do you have to say about all the issues raised by the analysts?
I don't usually agree with Labour Party, but in this case, it is true. I mean, it sounded good to say the presidency is cutting down on the size of delegations, especially after what happened when they went for the Dubai Environment Summit. But probably Mr. Obi is right. That should only be the beginning. Because as the Prof was saying earlier, to say you have cut down 60%, people will say 60% of what? If we don't know where we are starting, with the percentages hardly make sense. And in any case, whereas it makes sense to cut down on the huge size of delegations, but also given our situation in Nigeria, maybe there are some things you cannot cut down, like the security presence and many other logistic things. And those ones, again, as Prof said, are not properly part of delegation, because all the policemen running around because president is coming, lining up the road, they are not...
That's a national security
that one is not really what you call part of delegation. And also, again, there are other areas of waste that are much more serious than delegations.
And that's why he was saying that we need to have a concrete national plan, a planning system that gives direction, a sort of vision as to where the government is going and where the nation is going, so that irrespective of when the government comes, the nation, Nigerians will know where they're heading to the next 10 to 20 years.
Well, it's true. We have acquired many bad habits and practices. About 20 years ago, I was in India and I saw the Prime Minister arriving. He was sitting in this car. India has since changed slightly, but that time they had two types of vehicles, one looking like our old Peugeot 403. So there was one called Maruti and there was another one called Ambassador Nova. And all the ministers sit in it. The Prime Minister is sitting. If you see it, I mean, I wouldn't want to sit in that car, I mean, here at home. And they told us that there was a World Bank meeting in India, and they gave each delegation coming from abroad 2 of those vehicles to ferry their VIPs around. And they say it was only the Nigerian minister who complained that this car is not comfortable, that the embassy had to, our High Commission in Delhi had to go and hire a Mercedes car for him. And he was the only one who arrived in a Mercedes. Everybody came in that Indian-made Ambassador Nova. So we have acquired many bad practices, all these long limousines, when we don't manufacture them in our own country. So there are other bigger areas of waste, probably, that going forward the government should aim to cut down on.
Yeah, do you think that the president should be looking at a Marshall Plan for actually reducing the federal bureaucracy? Because there are lots of people who are saying that the cost of governance is too much. The federal cabinet itself is bloated at 48, and we hear that there are plans to actually restructure the federal cabinet. Is this the golden opportunity for a Marshall Plan?
Well, it is true that this is the largest cabinet we have ever had at the federal level. So obviously it didn't look very good aesthetically, you know, to Nigerians. But even that may not be the biggest cost, because if you put together the salary of 48 ministers in a situation when we are talking about 500 million Naira went to private accounts, probably that is more than the salary of all the ministers for 1 year combined. So there are much bigger areas, and corruption, especially a lack of due process, should be the first areas to tackle.
All right, and then on the controversial issue of the humanitarian ministry, quickly as we try to round off, what do you make of all the submissions made by the guests and of course the governors, APC governors, saying that look, let Nigerians take a second look at it. These are mere allegations, and we should be
the APC governors can say that you don't throw away your party member under the bus. But my friend the barrister was saying earlier that if all we have against the suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs is the information that is in the public domain, he thinks there is no case. I don't think that is true. Look, the permanent secretary more or less extricated himself from the process. When she minuted it to him, he cancelled PAMSEC and said, the Director of Finance, go ahead and implement. It was a serious statement by an experienced civil servant. More seriously, the Accountant General of the Federation issued a statement saying that when this memo came to her, she advised the minister that this is not the right way. I mean, I can't imagine anything more damaging than that. And last night here on Arise Television, we had the former Director General of the Bureau of Public Procurement saying very flatly that a minister has no role in procurement from the beginning. And he was asked whether maybe the current ministers don't know. He said they know, because during the retreat they were told, and he personally was invited to the retreat, and he made that clear. This is the function of ministers and PAMSECs and others in financial and procurement matters. So every minister knows that.
Interesting. Well, Mahmud Jega, we have a lot of interesting times ahead of us, and we hope to see how President Tinubu will help to ensure that there's sanity in the cabinet and his government generally. We must thank you immensely for being here. For us always, well, that's how it's been for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Do join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thank you for watching. I'm Somna Sambo.